Dear trading friends, here's an update video on Bitcoin and Ethereum and maybe also on Solana, since I also have an open Solana position. There was no update video yesterday, and honestly, yesterday wasn't particularly spectacular as we can see here in the daily chart. There was a bit of an upswing, a bit of a price drop, but basically I don't see much new volatility at this point. Of course, we also need to prepare ourselves a bit in case we continue to fall. We can see that here with Ethereum. The long order was triggered here, a stop loss was hit, but it's currently in profit, slightly in profit. And I want to show you something special, why I placed another order at the 0.786 level. But I'll get to that in a moment. Of course, we'll also take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin still has the open position slightly in the red, but here too the 0.5 Fibonacci was triggered. Another order is waiting here, currently still without a stop loss. I would only place that down here if this order also gets filled. Of course, we compare all of this with the liquidation heat map, but also on the liquidation map, because on the daily chart, there's something very, very interesting here that I still see as a possibility. We have two very highly leveraged positions, one just below us, but a really big one. You can see this bar here. It's at a price of about 100,000, 182,000. I'll give you the details in a moment about how big that is and why I'm positioning myself there again with a coin margin position. You can now also see the liquidation heat map on CoinGlass. The area above us is currently lighting up a bit more, which could become very interesting so that we might get a small wick to the upside here. We're only ever talking about the daily chart at this point in time. What's very exciting is that the Bitcoin whales are continuing to accumulate all the time. As I just told you in the last videos, but also in the live streams, around 35,000 Bitcoins are being accumulated here daily, which is not a small amount. Current positions, you can see it here. Ethereum is currently slightly in profit, but it's still a small position of just under 5,000 US dollars. And then I also have the Bitcoin trade, which is currently about 24,000 US dollars in size. And at this point in time, it's showing a small loss. But as I said, this is a building position that I currently have here. What I see as positive, let's stick with the positive things for now. If we zoom out now and I switch to another Bitcoin chart that's a bit clearer and open up my RSI here, then I go to the 4-hour chart and then I could, this is what I see here. We had a small divergence here once, a second one that didn't play out but instead continued further down afterwards. But what have we formed now? If we look closer, and I'll zoom in a bit more, as long as this isn't invalidated, it's very, very good. We have a rising RSI. Hopefully you can see this when I zoom in here. The RSI is making higher lows while at the same time with Bitcoin here, and maybe this will play out for us. That was actually the RSI closing candle. While at the same time we made a lower low for Bitcoin here. Could this now count as a bullish reversal for us? We'll see. I also specifically brought up the MACD again, and at least at this point in time, that's still more of a bullish sign. I'm not saying that we can't fall further, but this looks crystal clear here. With the MACD, we're making a higher low while Bitcoin has made a lower low. That could, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but those could be signs of a reversal. Of course, we mustn't forget. If we look at the liquidation heat map and map, let's go through it in detail now, especially the map. Of course, on a daily basis, we're constantly building up new liquidity below us. Obviously, that has to happen because otherwise the price can't go up, or rather the long positions are also involved in that so that the price can rise again. Overall, we mustn't forget that either. On a weekly basis, there's obviously a huge mountain of liquidations above us, which in my opinion will sooner or later become interesting for market makers. Of course, there's still some liquidity below us, but that's always going to be the case. We can't do without liquidity beneath us, because the people who open long positions will always show up here with liquidations. But if we zoom in now to one day, what could still be interesting for me at this point in time on a daily basis? If I zoom in on this previous area, on this spike here, you can see that we still have at high leverage, I don't know if you can see it very well, I think now you can, a high leverage position at the price of $100,180 totaling 170 million. Yes, that's quite a lot. We shouldn't forget that. 170 million. And then we have a few positions with medium and low leverage. But the 170 million high leverage position could possibly still be picked up as a wick. So that was at 100,180. Where would that be? Let's take a look at that. Would we still see a wick down here now? 100,180, that should be somewhere around here. So roughly in this low area here, we'll see whether that actually happens or not. At the moment, it seems like Bitcoin is on its way down there. We'll also see what happens next here. In any case, I'm prepared to buy more if we drop lower. But now let's move on to Ethereum. I've got something very, very, very exciting for you there. I also noticed something else, which is why I placed another order here at the 0.786 Fibonacci level. And you can see that here when I go into my orders, in addition to a Bitcoin position at 94,000, which I'll probably increase a bit, not at 94,000, but at 94,300. But for Ethereum, I placed another position at 2,730 US dollars. Why? What did I notice? That would be just above this Fibonacci level here, 0.786. Because let's not forget, do you remember why I partially sold my Ethereum? We had the Fibonacci extension level, and as I shared with you, Ethereum went directly into these target zones and we kept seeing pullbacks there. That was also one of the reasons why I sold parts in these areas here. But now we've reached a target level, and what just occurred to me is what I can do here. I can also draw a Fibonacci from the complete low to the complete high. Let's do that. And there I have an overlap. Roughly, I would need to place it more precisely, but roughly at the 0.618 from the entire upward move now into a possible correction. I'll switch back to the daily chart so you can see it better. So once, I'll draw it in for you again. We have this upward move, a possibility of dropping down here to this 0.5, so to here, or even to 0.618. I hope that doesn't happen, that we don't go down that far and that it can then move up again. Or yes, maybe it won't even play out further. And now we have the possibility from this level here, as I mentioned, that we went up, then into the correction, and now the recovery is coming in. We must not forget, Ethereum has the most liquidity lying above us. Not even Bitcoin has as much as ETH does on a long-term basis. I want to share that with you again. If we take a quick look back at what I just showed here, it might have actually been optimal to take this entire level here, because then you would only have a 0.5 Fibonacci entry, and that would have been extremely optimal at this point in time. But that's not the case now. I got in a bit earlier because none of us can say in advance. Where will we see a reversal? And that was still the 0.5 Fibonacci, a very, very interesting zone because of this area here. And that's exactly why I placed another order at 2,730 US dollars. If this one hits the stop loss, which I currently have open, then I have a second one open down here, which will hopefully eventually find a bottom in this whole large volume area we have here. If we do go down, but don't forget, if I go back here, Model 3, I want to keep showing you this again and again. Then, when I activate it for the citizen, switch to the 4 and then look at the last 3 months, for example, I still see these massive billions lying above us. You see that? I can only keep repeating it. For me, I am liquid. I follow the liquidity. I just have to say it like that. And that's why I previously followed it down with the short trades. And now I'm starting to prepare myself for this liquidity up here. Will it be given up? We'll see. At this point, I'm still bullish, even though we've fallen so far down. But the fear in the market is already very high now. We didn't just have the record crash where we really dropped down, which cost a lot of people an incredible amount of money. No, we caused the maximum pain a second time. The question is, when will this end? When will we finally get that reversal to pick up this liquidity? But with Ethereum, just like with Bitcoin, I'm also preparing for something else. Should we see this rise now? I'm paying attention to my Fibonacci levels again. And that means if I remove this here, we have a clearer view again because we've made a new low. And for me, that's clearly a continuation of the bearish price action. We must not lose sight of that. And it's definitely something I keep in mind, but we're making further lows here and only recovering with lower highs. And in this case, if we should come up to the 0.5 or rather 0.681 level, yes, that looks very interesting here. Take a look at where the 0.681 has its support. Then I would definitely secure my long position, setting the stop loss to break even. That would be my first step, or rather not just securing the position. Maybe I would also take partial profits and for now open a small short position as well. Then I would consider how far we could still go down, because on a smaller time frame, if we were to rise here to this 0.618 Fibonacci, I'll move this over so you can see it even better. Then I see an opportunity to go short again because we have this massive volume block here. Take a look at this. We don't actually need to draw much in there. But we had a lot of support here with the 0.618 before the major breakthrough came. But the 0.5 Fibonacci also looks interesting because here we also have support once, twice, almost 3 times. These are my trades at the moment. I'll place something here again and again. Very, very simple with my trading strategy. Because if we reach new highs here, if we recover to these price levels, then a bullish price action would build up in the small time frame. and we must not ignore them. Even bullish price action is subject to downward corrections. Then we would have to look closely at where it goes. But that could then correct us again and cause us to rise even higher. What could that look like? Let's assume this is our low and we rise, keep rising, go somewhere to the 0.681 as a small example, our target zone where it could be due to the rejection. And then at 0.5 or 0.681, we could get the reversal again in order to finally break through this block upwards again. And that's how I could imagine it if we continue to rise, of course. Currently, we'll see what happens today, Friday, and where the market goes if we fall further. Of course, in that case, I would also move my Fibonacci levels further down. And of course, I'll keep you updated live on that. Very briefly about Solana. I've actually charted Solana again. The daily chart here actually looks very, very interesting. If I go in here, we haven't reached these target levels, but what's interesting for me is I actually have to redo everything. I wanted to take this out again here, but I wanted to go through it with you. Because if I take this low here to this high as well, to the complete high, we can see that at the moment there's still a support level at the 0.618 Fibonacci, which is very interesting to me. That's why I also went slightly long here in coin margin. You can see it here, a small position and the large position here in Ethereum. That one, of course, looks even more exciting. It has already realized nearly $14,000 and is currently $15,000 in size, with $155 in profit. So I'm really curious here as well whether I need to keep compounding it or not. But I have a break-even price, just imagine that, of $350 at the moment, because I've simply realized so much profit. That means for this to go into a loss again would be very, very difficult, overall into a loss. Then finally I have, so now you're all up to speed, finally I have Pionex. You know, we started the Zegi shortbot in a live stream. If we look at Zeg now, Zeg is simply unstoppable. Take a look at this. And I'm going to adjust it live with you now and hopefully save it for myself. Let me put it this way, because we also have the Fibonacci extension here. When I drew this with you, we had this high, a correction, and the extension level marks these as target zones. And now we see that $680 are the target zones. The problem is my bot that's in here is already out of its range and currently has a 70% loss. What I'm going to do now is at least extend my crits up to $700. I'll do that live now as well, so you can see what something like this can look like. That means I click on more here, then click edit price range, and then I say I want to set it to, what did I just say? $700 exactly. I want to increase my price range to $700. And what I'm doing here now is nothing more than allowing my bot to work again. That means I now have to add another 125 US tether here. There are three options. Edit directly, but that's not possible because of my funds. Here we have, I can add something which means supplement invest to restore profitability. But there's also an option where I could put in $213. Yes, that would add extra margin and recovery plus reduce risk. But what I want to show you again, if I do this now, my liquidation price is at 667. But if I add this now, you can see my liquidation price rises to $845 US. That means not only does my grid range get included again and the Zeg up here can keep working and generating profits, but at the same time, I've also increased my liquidation price by almost $200. And you can see this live now as well. I'm now clicking on adopt and adding it a second time. And now you can see that I'm in here again and have pulled out my loss. And at this point, I more or less have a new entry. Of course, what we see here is that losses that were there before now look as if they're gone, but they're not. They have, of course, been realized. But since my price range now extends much further down, I'm quite hopeful that we won't overshoot this target level too much, because now my estimated liquidation price is very, very far away. Take a look at this. It's somewhere around here and I want to protect myself here. What do I have now? $845 US. That's my current liquidation price. If that doesn't work out either and it really keeps going up, then I'll accept the losses and tell you how it is. But this rise here is just so intense, so brutal for me that I say if a correction comes here, it will be strong and with momentum. In my opinion, a bigger sell-off will take place because by now people could already realize 1,800% profit from this low that's in there. How much more do they want to take? We'll see, maybe I'm wrong, but for me, I've now adjusted my bot so that higher up, at this point, my starting price is here again, and I hope that I can take these profits, which I've actually already realized with me again here. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If anything else happens, I might go live again. But overall, I think we'll see each other again on Sunday because I rarely do anything on Saturdays. See you next time.